Do you want to get 37 times better by this time next year? If you do, listen up. Hi guys, welcome. Coach Brian Lynch here from Ascent Coaching. Welcome back to the cave, I guess. Today we're going to talk about habits. Much of what goes into getting in shape, living a healthy life, is based on the habits that we do on a daily basis. So we're going to kind of dive into James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, and talk about some of the principles in that book and give you some actionable steps and some of the things that I do that help me live a healthier lifestyle and that maybe that you guys can implement in your lives as well. So the author starts off by describing what atomic means, and it has three different definitions, one of which is something very small, think atoms, right? The other, number two, is that it's part of a system. So atoms make up molecules. Molecules make up states of matter, right? So it's not just something standalone. And then also atomic, as in think atomic bomb, and that's what I thought of when I first started, reading this book. I was thinking these are big habits that are going to make big changes in my life, when really the whole premise is that, the small things lead to big results later on. Habits are essentially the compound interest of self-improvement. If you get 1% better every day, at first it doesn't seem like you're making a lot of progress, but over time, just like if you invest a little bit every day or every month, every paycheck, at first it doesn't seem like you're really saving a whole lot, but over time things add up to bigger changes in the future. On the flip side, poor habits could also lead to worse outcomes. One thing that happens when people try to make changes in their life is that they don't see the outcomes right away. So think about going to the gym. You go to the gym one time and then you look in the mirror and you're like, I don't look any different. I don't see any different. Or you eat a healthy meal and you don't see changes. It's funny, my Uncle Terry, he'd walk around the house and he'd be like, I need to do a couple sit-ups, and it's just kind of the mindset of, hey, if I do this a couple times, a couple sit-ups or crunches or whatever, I'm going to get abs. And that's just not how it works. The author actually brings up a good point where he talks about an ice cube. And if you put an ice cube at 25 degrees, it's an ice cube. If you raise the temperature 1 degree, 26 degrees, then again to 27 degrees, 28 degrees, you don't see a change. All right. And that's like going to the gym one time or 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. But eventually when you hit that 32 degree mark, the change happens, right? It almost seems like it happens overnight. And that's kind of what happens with, your habits. If you make the healthy choices, whether it's eating healthy or going to the gym or moving more frequently, eventually you're going to see that change, and then it kind of continues at that, exponential trajectory kind of a thing, right? As long as you stick with it. So just something to think about as far as how you're building a habit and, kind of sticking with it and getting through the initial stages when it doesn't seem like it's paying off. The author also brings up the point that you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. So you want to, when you're building a habit, you want to have a system that's going to make you successful, right? So, everybody has the goal of winning a race, but those with the better habits are the ones who are going to, maybe it's better the workout habits or eating habits are the ones who are going to be successful, right? So, you could have the goal of losing 20 pounds, but if your habit of eating donuts or eating ice cream or not working out is the ones that you're sticking with, that doesn't get you closer to your goal. So the author really urges you or encourages you to think more about your systems rather than the goals you're setting. If you take care of the systems, the outcomes will kind of fall into place, right? So if I consistently work out, if I consistently eat healthy, then I'm going to have greater outcomes in those areas. All right, so focus on your systems, not necessarily just the goals or what you want to accomplish. The author makes it a really good point to talk about identity change. Many people want to like run a marathon or run more frequently, but the ultimate goal should be to become a runner. If you become a runner, and this kind of goes back to our systems, if you become a runner, everything else kind of works itself out, right? So if I am a runner, what would a runner do? Well, a runner would run more frequently. Maybe a runner would run a marathon or a 5K or an obstacle course race. What would somebody who's healthy do, right? And this is a question that you could ask yourself: is what would somebody do if they were this type of person? So if I wanted to be, I'm a religious person, so I do this, this, and this because I'm religious, right? We live based on our identities, based on the hats that we roll. If I want to be a better father would do this, this, and this. So with that in mind, if you can act as if, and this reminds me of the "What Would Jesus Do" bracelets, the WWJD. What would a healthy person do? What would a religious person do? What would a fit person do, right? You could ask yourself these questions to get yourself on the right track, and just live as if. When you're making decisions, you ask yourself that question and then make the decision that's associated with that identity. If you change your identity, that's the greatest, level of change, rather than just changing one little part or one outcome, right? Just because you saved $1 one day doesn't mean that you are really great financially. You got to do that over the course of years. Every time you choose a habit, it's kind of like a vote for the person that you want to be. All right, so we got to kind of stack those little small wins up to be that person. So if you change your identity, you can change what you do and your behaviors. Habits have 4 things. They have a cue, a craving, a response, and the reward, right? So a lot of times the environment cues us of something, then we crave it, then we get the response, we respond to it. So, hey, we saw a commercial, had a piece of cake, now we're craving cake, we go and get the cake, and then it tastes good, so it rewarded us with the cake, right? So those are the 4 parts of a habitual response. A lot of this is outside of our knowing, right? A lot of times we don't even realize a lot of the cues or the things in our environment that are triggering us to do certain things. So one of the things that this book does, or, thinking about our habits, is bringing more awareness to the behaviors that we have, right? So Carl Jung, since we're talking about psychology, Carl Jung was a psychoanalyst, worked underneath Sigmund Freud. And he had a quote, and I'm going to read it just so I don't jack it up. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So if you're not bringing awareness to what you do, it's going to hold you back, right? And you're just going to be like, well, that's just how things are. And it's like, no, you have choices. You make choices every single day. You just don't realize you're doing them. And the way that the human mind works is that it tries to automate a lot of this stuff. We actually have a part in our brain called the basal ganglia, and there's even a specific part in there, and I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but there's a specific part of the basal ganglia that kind of automates a lot of this process. So as you do something repetitively, at first it seems like you have to kind of will it. It's a lot of mental effort. But as you do that, think driving. When you first started driving, it was a lot. You're sitting there, you're focusing on your mirrors, but now it's just something that happens so automatic that you don't even really have to think about it. You just do it. So your body wants to kind of create those shortcuts all the time. Your mind does anyway. So you have to kind of get through the growing pains at first before you can actually develop the habit, right? Vice versa, you also got to break the bad habits. So, just something to think about as you're creating new habits, that at first it might seem like a grind, but it gets easier over time as you do it more and more frequently. All right, so talking about the 4 laws of habits, creating new habits. So you want to make it obvious. And this goes with the cue part of a habit, right? You want to make it obvious. You want to make it in your face. You want to set yourself up, with your environment. And I'll quickly go through these and then we'll get into more detail. So you want to make it obvious. and you want to make it attractive, you want to make it easy, and then you want to make it satisfying. So you want to design your environment and routines to cue the behaviors that you want. So if you want to run more, you want your running shoes to be more visible to you. If you want to drink more water, maybe you have a water bottle sitting on your desk. If you want to eat more fruit, put the fruit bowl out rather than hiding them in your fridge, right? So make it obvious, make it right in front of your face so that you can't miss it. It'll give you the cue, and it makes it easier to do. Associate your habits with positive emotions and incentives. So reward yourself. Join a fitness class with friends because that makes it more enjoyable. Maybe what I do is I like to listen to books and podcasts. Well, I pair that with going for a run, right? So I don't necessarily love going for a long run, but I do love listening to books and those podcasts. So that's a good time for me to kind of do one thing that I enjoy with something else that I don't enjoy. So maybe I save the books for just those moments. Or maybe I love watching movies, so I'm going to go run on the elliptical and watch movies or listen to music or whatever it may be, right? So those are just some things that you can do to kind of make it, associate the positive emotions with something that you are kind of considering negative, but you're trying to, establish that newfound habit. You want to reduce the effort. So you want to make things easy. So you want to reduce the friction that would maybe prevent you from doing the habit, right? So for instance, if you want to eat healthier, maybe you prep certain meals. Maybe you buy prepackaged things that are already portioned out so that you're not overeating. One of the things my wife and I did for the longest time is that we were just following Beachbody programs. And although I don't know, y'all might have your own perspective on Beachbody, it was easy just to hit play. Like I didn't have to come up with the mental energy to design a workout program or think about what I'm doing today. I just hit play. And as long as I just follow the program and this person tells me what to do, and that just makes it easy. I don't have to exert any more effort. It just reduces the friction. So find ways to make your new habits easier on you. The last thing would be law 4 would be making it satisfying. So you want to ensure that your habits deliver an immediate sense of reward or accomplishment. So one of the first things that jumps to my mind is the pump that you get after lifting, or the runner's high, that you get after going for a run. So those types of things are good to reflect on, like the way that you feel after doing something, healthy. Another thing you could do is reflect on, when you track your stuff, reflect on the things that you've tracked. So, oh man, I've worked out consistently, 5 days a week for 3 months. That's amazing, and give yourself some kudos, or reward yourself with like a nice meal, or maybe you get that dessert that you were looking for because you lost some certain weight, right? So rewarding yourself for your accomplishments, which it's just positive reinforcement is ultimately what it is. So just doing those types of reflections and celebrating the small victories and giving yourself, kudos for hitting certain milestones along the way. So some of the ways that you can really establish good habits, these are 4 or 5 tricks that I think you could do that are pretty easy. You could stack your habits. So you pair one habit with a habit that you already have. So for instance, I've been trying to take vitamins more regularly. So what I do is I have my vitamins next to my toothbrush in the bathroom. So every time I brush my teeth, I know I got to take my vitamins, right? So that's just one thing I know I'm going to do every day with something that I'm trying to do. Maybe it's, I want to drink a glass of water before I drink my coffee. Well, I go right to my coffee machine and there's my bottle of water sitting there. So I drink my water in the morning and then I eat my coffee or drink my coffee. Don't be eating your coffee. That's not smart. One of the other things I do is I food prep. So on Sundays when I'm doing other chores around the house to get the house ready for the week, I food prep at that same time. So it's just something that I'm already doing and I'm pairing another habit with it. The 2-minute rule. So when you talking about making something easy, when you're first starting off a habit, you don't want to start too big, right? I want to run 6 miles every day for a week, let's break it down to very small steps. Something so small that you make it almost impossible for you not to do. So for instance, we want to start a running habit. Let's just put your shoes on first. And then you put your shoes on, that's for the first week. Then it's put your shoes on and then walk to the mailbox the second week. Then it's put your shoes on and walk to the end of the street the third week, right? And you just keep adding small bits and pieces to your habit, right? So that you can build off of them. But if you start too hard, you miss some days or whatever, you might get discouraged and then you kind of fall back. So making it small and then building off of it, right? Another example would be if you want to create a reading habit. So, rather than reading 10 pages a night, if that's your ultimate goal, you start off by reading 1 page, or maybe just picking up the book and opening it is a good start. And then from that, just build page by page, week by week, right? An implementation intention. So this is creating a specific, that word always gets me, specific plan for when and where you perform a new habit. So for instance, I will work out every day when I get home from work, right? So when I get home from work, I know that I'm going to work out. Or I will save, 10% of my paycheck every time I get paid, right? So that's something very specific, and there's a cue that kind of lets you know that you're going to do something. The example I gave earlier with food prepping, I will food prep for the week on Sundays. So being very specific rather than just saying I'm going to eat healthier, give yourself something actionable when and where you're going to do something. I mentioned earlier about tracking, right? So you can look at your progress, but write down your habits so you can see what you currently do. Maybe you look at a day's worth of habits and determine whether they're positive, negative, neutral, and you just you can track just for progress purposes so that you can bring awareness to what you're doing, right? I just think that kind of goes a long way. If you're not aware, then you're just your life is, other things are living your life and you're just kind of going with the flow. And, I'm all for going with the flow and being flexible, but you can also take a lot of control in your life and make your life happen for you. So tracking stuff is good for accountability. That helps me with my food intake or my workouts. And also other things, like making lists and crossing things off and, accomplishing things, I think is good to kind of write them down and track them. And one of the final things I think is very actionable is a commitment device. So there's two different types of commitment devices. There's a hard commitment device and a soft commitment device. The hard commitment device is almost like, and I used to use this, as I'm paying for a gym membership, so I might as well go to the gym, right? I got to go to the gym. I'm paying for it, so I got to go. One of the examples that the book brought up was, donating to something. Right. So if I don't do what I say I'm going to do, if I don't work out this many days a week, or if I don't start this business, then I give my buddy $50 and he donates it to a charity that I don't like. Right. So this is something, you want the money. Money's important to you, or maybe it could be something else. If I don't do this, I lose this other thing. So that's like a hard commitment that you're making. And on the flip side, the soft commitment device is something like a social contract, right? So last week when I put out the video, hey, I'm starting a business, I kind of put it on blast for everybody to see, right? So now if I don't start the business, everybody's going to be like, well, what happened? You said you were going to do this and you didn't do it. So it's like social pressure, right? So I think could be, number one, you can get the support that you need. Number two, I think it also keeps you on the right track. So, telling somebody that you're going to get in shape and that now you got like an accountability partner. Now you have somebody who's kind of, pushing you to do it, and you're pushing yourself so that you don't let them down. Also, because many people are a person of their word. They don't want to be considered a liar. That's also, once again, the identity type stuff. You are living in the identity that you said you're going to do something. Now let's do it, right? So now let's talk about breaking bad habits. And there's 3 things you can do. So you could extinguish the behavior altogether, right? Think, stop smoking. You could limit it. I'm only going to smoke, a half a pack rather than a full pack, right? So you're cutting back. Or you could replace it altogether. So rather than smoke, I'm going to chew gum, right? The nicotine gum or whatever. And maybe that's not the best example, but So yeah, you can get rid of it altogether, right? So this is going cold turkey, and how you choose to break a bad habit, it really depends on the habit itself or your personality, right? You got to understand yourself and know what works best for you. So I know I don't do well with limiting things. So I'm either get rid of it altogether or replace it kind of a person. So for instance, talk about junk food in the house. I have more self control at the grocery store than I have at my home. So once I buy the food and it's there, I'm like, I might as well eat it. Right. So eating small bits of candy every single day doesn't work as well for me because I struggle with limiting. So I'd rather just not have it in the house. My wife, Erin, she can do that, no problem. So it really just depends on who you are and maybe the actual behavior that you're trying to change. So I prefer going cold turkey with certain things. Hey, I'm not going to eat those types of foods. I'm going to eat this type of food instead, um, or um, or I replace it. So when I get the urge to go snack, let me grab a healthy snack rather than um, the unhealthy snack. So if I could grab the apple or the blueberries rather than the Sour Patch Kids and the chips, then or the cookies, then I'm going to do that, right? So those are some three things that you could do to kind of break bad habits. Now, continuing with the breaking of bad habits, it's the inverse of the other four law or the four laws to build a good habit. So, rather than make something obvious, you want to make it invisible. So, put your snacks and treats out of sight. Um, Whatever the bad habit is, get it away so that you can't see it, so that it's not in your face, right? It gets rid of the cue that was getting you to start the craving. Maybe your struggle with watching too much TV or doom scrolling on your phone, which sometimes I scroll a lot on my phone. So one of the things you could do is when I got off of Facebook back in the pandemic, is that I removed the app and the notifications from my home screen. So I still had it on my phone. I just had to kind of scroll through like 4 or 5 pages of apps to kind of find it. So if I wanted to go to it, I made it harder. And then I even went as far as to deleting the app altogether, and I had to use my browser, right? And that just makes it more difficult. It's like it's just not in front of my face. I can't see it, right? Um, and it kind of goes with the difficult one too as well. But you could also make your habits unattractive. So highlight the negative consequences of the habit itself. All right. So one of the things, I like to eat ice cream. Ice cream is delicious, but dairy doesn't agree with me. So when I eat ice cream or before I eat ice cream, I think about, man, how's this going to make me feel? Whether it's a sense of guilt because I worked out all day and made healthy choices, and now I feel like I'm wasting that with a bowl of ice cream, or whether it's how I'm going to feel after I eat the ice cream, or insert McDonald's here. Like a McDonald's burger does taste good, at least I think it does. But at the same time, I'm going to feel like crap 10 minutes from now. So reflecting on that, it makes it a little bit less attractive. Like, I don't really want that ice cream like I thought I did, right? Because I'm going to feel bad. Make something difficult. So going back to the ice cream example, if you want ice cream, make it to where you have to go out and get it. All right. So number one, that makes it more expensive because a tub of ice cream is maybe $4 or $5. Whereas if you go out and get it, you're paying $4 or $5 for just a cone, right? So it's a waste of money, right? You feel like it is anyway. It's not as economical as it could be. You also have to drive and go get it, right? So rather than storing it in your freezer, I got to go to Dairy Queen to go get my dip cone that I really want, right? So it's more expensive and it's inconvenient, right? So if you can make your habits more difficult, you're more likely you are to, break the bad ones per se. And last but not least, you want to disrupt the reward system. Finally, we talk about making something unsatisfying, and hopefully, if you do steps like 1, 2, and 3, make it, invisible, make it unattractive, make it difficult. By this point, it shouldn't be as satisfying as it once was. If you have to drive out to go get your ice cream and it makes you feel like crap and you're reflecting on the way that it makes you feel, then, hopefully at this point it's not as satisfying of a habit as it once was. So, but anytime you can kind of reflect and think, is this even worth it? Why do I do this in the first place? That'll make it less satisfying. So if you put all four of those together, you're able to, work your way towards breaking down some of those bad habits. So ultimately, I just wanted to make this video to get you guys to start thinking about the things that you do on a daily basis, to bring awareness to the habits that you currently have or the ones that you want to develop, and give you actionable steps so that you can meet your goals, right? So first off, bring awareness to what you're doing. Start building some good systems, some small habits that create good morning routines, or habits that, make your weeks better, so that eventually through time lead to greater outcomes, or greater successes in whatever it is that you guys want to do. It just doesn't have to be just fitness. This could be anything. This could be the business. This could be, as a father or as a husband or whatever it may be. So just to kind of give you guys some actionable steps to take control back in your life and create the life that you want to live. All right, guys. Well, till next time, keep climbing and keep grinding.